We're continuing Perek Gimel, the third chapter, Halacha 9. La'eza mumah ein chilek l'olam haba. Which person who is a mummer, an apostate, doesn't have a portion of the world to come? The Be'er Sheva points out that the Baal HaIkrim explains the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish regarding which mummer doesn't have a portion of the world to come. It depends on how you explain the Pasuk in Yeshayahu. Therefore, they expanded the Sheol, which is Gehenna, and it opened its mouth without end. Reish Lakish says that the mouth of Gehenna became wider without any demarcation to someone who was left over afilu chok echol bli choik, for those who are without the law. Rabbi Yochanan says lo noyach LaHashem shetidan es Yisrael lekavchei v'kol kach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not happy to judge Klal Yisrael so harshly. Ela only lebli choik means they only knows one chok, and the Baal HaIkrim says that Reish Lakish is the opinion that someone who cannot stand, we'll go to the next page, and he's mizalzel on one mitzvah, he doesn't keep it always, such as shatnez or any of the other negative commandments, and thus he says the 612 mitzvahs is not 613, as the Rambam says, as if he nullified this mitzvah from the world. Therefore, he goes leber shochas, which is another language for the 10 names for Gehenna, and he is judged there for generations and generations. Now, Yochanan is of the opinion that even though that loisesa is a sin that one should be punished without question, still it can't be that he never atones for what he did. And the pasuk that says that his din is only the Gehenna is talking when somebody denies a mitzvah, that he says all of the Torah is from Hashem except for one pasuk. Meaning, so what's the difference between denying one pasuk and denying Eloisesa? Because if he believes in the Torah, he just doesn't keep the mitzvahs, it's one thing. But if he denies a portion of the Torah, that's a different concept. Rambam explains that he always wore shatnez. That seems that a mishumit, that one sin, is when he's over on a negative commandment. But Achronim disagree that the din is also if somebody doesn't put on tefillin, for example, would be also technically a muma. The Baal HaIkrim also brings down from the Brisa somebody, the sins are many, more is greater than his merits, and he has one sin that is a sin not between him and God. It's between him and God, but it's because he doesn't do something with his physical body. There he goes to Gehenna, and he stays 12 months, and then his physical being is gone, and his soul is somehow burnt. And the Brisa is talking by someone who denigrated, didn't keep one mitzvah, or he has a majority of merits. He's not judged in Gehenna, only 12 months. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, the pasuk Yeshayahu is talking in one who admits in all the Torah, but he wasn't careful in one mitzvah. Reish Lakish has a question. But according to Reish Lakish, there is a question that if he transgressed on one halacha, one chok, if he is forever judged to Gehenna, not only for 12 months. So Baal HaIkrim says, we have to say that Reish Lakish will explain the Brisa. He stays there only 12 months, is only if he didn't transgress on a positive commandment. and he didn't do it, but not by a negative commandment, it'll be forever. But somebody who never did who never kept a negative commandment and he transgressed it, there he goes to Be'er Shachas and he's judged for generations and generations. The Be'er Sheva asks a question, however, how could it be that Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion that somebody never kept a negative injunction does not go to Be'er Shachas forever and ever? Rabbi Yochanan himself says that Mumla Dovad Echo, if somebody's a mumma for one thing that he doesn't keep, he is a min. We know a min is someone that doesn't have a portion of the world to come. And it would seem Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with himself. In the Divrei Ikrim, he says that Gam, you can't think to explain the words of Reish Lakish only on mitzvahs lo yisesa. And negatives are not positives, because Reish Lakish says choik. And certainly, there's no difference in punishment between positive and negative. What happened here? What page are we on?
We're on page $5.
We get to go on the egg. What did I go wrong to? Hopefully it's working. I can't tell. Well, now it's working. Again, the Pri Megadim writes that the Betchilas, he thought that the din of Lahachas is even Bedover Echod, he's called a min. He said even by mitzvahs asay, Kishitas Rabbeinu Tam, that all of the mitzvahs asay, that one was mevatel and didn't keep, he's called a Peshe Yisrael Begufay. This is the opinion of the Magen Avraham. The Pri Megadim asks the question, why isn't this din like a mumma lahachas, who is judged in Gehenim l'doyer doyros forever? Because it says there are those who say lahachas is somebody who does not do it for desire, out of desire. And certainly, somebody who denigrates a mitzvah, and he argues that there's proof that a mumma lahachas is only when he does a loisesa by action, as opposed to there are those negative commandments which are done by inaction as well, and therefore the Shulchan Aruch writes only nevela or shatnez, because that's something that you eat as an action, or shatnez that is an action, that it's a mitzvah loisesa. But the Pri Megadim writes that he saw that the two is sure, because of the opinion, he takes it as an assumption that even a positive commandment, if he did it with rebelliousness, he is equal to a goy. And he brings proof from Chulin that there's a mumma la'arelus, a mumma to somebody who wants to be uncircumcised. And Rashi says that he kicks this commandment. Because the Mishnah asks the question, he's a min, he's not a mumma. So that the din, the law of whether somebody nullifies a positive commandment depends is really a disagreement, and so we find in the Psicha Koilelos, in the general introduction of the Pri Megadim, who discusses this idea of the Tvua Shur. In Rabbeinu Yoina, we find the posuk Oro. Cursed, when it says in Dvarim, it says that we have to get up on our agreement, our able. It says, "Cursed is he who will not keep the words of this Torah to do them," and that's referring to even one part of the Torah. In B'Shar Gimel, he says it's referring to on even a positive commandment. So according to Rabbeinu Yoina, we see that somebody nullifies even one commandment, which is a positive commandment, he's considered a mumma. Now, what does mishumad l'chol haTorah mean? The Rambam explains, who is somebody who's mishumad, the second type, not just one item. but he's Mishum L'chol Torah. He denies total Torah, such as someone who goes after the religions of the Goyim. That Rachmana litzlan he converted. Bishor shegoz u'shmat. This is the correct text, and the censor changed it when people make edicts, but it really means at the time when, such as the Inquisition. And he attaches himself to non-Jews, and he says, why should I be together with Jews who are lowly and always being terrorized? It's better that I should have connection to keep for those who have strong upper hands. The Rambam doesn't say tovli, that shouldn't sound, a person will say himself something terrible like that. He says tov loy. He doesn't want to talk about himself. It is a concept that Chassidim have very strong. Don't say something bad about yourself, in a way that could be interpreted about yourself. And this person says so. He is somebody who is a mishumah to the entire Torah. Because the Mishnah writes in Shas Hashmad, in a time of conversion, forced conversion, to tell you, and even though it's a time of forced conversion, he's considered a mishumah l'chol Torah kula, because even though he's only giving up one aspect technically, he might be lighting candles Friday night or other things, but when there's no xera and there's no forced conversion, and he does it out of his self desire, there for sure he's a mishumah l'chol Torah, and he has no portion of the world to come. The Ravid disagrees. Avram, he says, Avram was the name of the Ravid. Rabbeinu Avram. Somebody who goes to does the religion of Oived Kechovim, Hine hu moida be'Eloheihem, he is admitting that their gods are gods. Barei hu min. Now he's not just a mishumid. It's in the higher class. He's a higher class person who's a min, that admits, for example, in a false messiah, that the Ravid understood in the Rambam that somebody who converts, he's not only in a category of mishumid, he's in a more terrible category. And the case of Mishnah says that the Ravid also asks, according to the Rambam, if a person converted to be a Christian and he believes in the person they believe in, he is a min and not a mishumid, as the Rambam writes in Halacha Zayin. And we'll turn the page. Ho'imer, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu guf. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a physical being. Ubal Tmuna is called a min. And certainly if he believes a man as God, that would certainly be a physical manifestation. Furthermore, the Ravid asks that the Bali, those who believe in the faith of Christianity, say that there's a Trinity, that there's a threesome. They deny that HaKadosh Baruch Hu alone runs the world. It's a conglomeration. The Rambam writes that whoever says more than one is a min. So how does he call him here a mishumit? The Kesef Mishnah wants to explain the Ravid that the Rambam uses the word mishumit because he takes into what he says that any religion that he converted to, even a different faith that is not Avodah Zarah, even if it's not Avodah Zarah, and somebody who goes to and acts like their religion is not a min. He's a mishumad because he left the Das Yisrael even though he believes in God. But if he converts to a religion like Christianity, which the Rambam considers a avodah zarah, the Rambam too would admit that he's a min. But this still doesn't answer the lotion of the Rambam that he says anyone who goes to the Das HaGoyim, any of the religions of the nations, and that would mean even those that are idol worshippers. Therefore, the Gesed Mishnah explains another answer. Min is someone who denies one of the five major ideas of belief in the Rambam. In this halacha he's talking about, he's going to the religion of Goyim, only outwardly so, even though he doesn't believe in it. He doesn't believe in Christianity, he doesn't believe in any others. He does it, but he believes only in God, but he doesn't want to be included with the Jewish people because of their status in the physical world. But he believes in the 13 precepts, and he doesn't believe in any other religion. Therefore, he's not called a min. And he infers this from the Lashon of the Rambam, that he acts in their religion because he wants to upgrade his physical world, and therefore he's called a meshumit for all the Torah. Kesem Mishnah cites Hilchos Avodah Zarah, a Jew, it says over there in Beis, Hilchos Avodah Zarah, chapter 2, Halacha Hey, a Jew who does Avodah Zarah, he is like every Jew, he's a goy for everything. Because a meshumah l'avodah zarah is a meshumah l'chol ha'torah kulo. As it says in the Gemara, hamum l'avodah zarah, somebody who does the idol worship is considered mum l'chol ha'torah kulo. That's one of the aspects. Shabbos also, if he doesn't keep Shabbos, is also somebody who denies kol ha'torah kulo. Because the Mishnah also cites the meshumah la'achis is found in avodah zarah, in Masechta Avodah Zarah 26b. Rav and Ravin have a disagreement. One says that mimul tiyovan and mumul ha'achis, that somebody who is a mumma, he doesn't keep Torah out of spite or out of desire, they're both called min. And another one says that even a mumul ha'achis is only a meshumit, even if he does out of spite. Min is if he actively does avodah zarah. Rambam is more lenient here. He says that mumul ha'achas is only somebody, is only a meshumit, not a min, because min is a higher level, and only if he serves idol worship, if he actually does idol worship, is he a min. And so it would seem from the language of the Ravid that min is a higher level of a category of someone who denies Judaism. The Lecha Mishnah asks a question. In Hilchos Tshuva, when it comes to the laws of murders, the Rambam writes, the minim. Who is a min? Those who serve idols, or who does averas rebelliously. So it would seem to be more stringent to include even people who do it out of spite. And the Gemara says, take out mishumit, because somebody does averas lahachis is a min. It's not a mishumit. According to the Rambam, that he counts the minim separately from mishumodim, he should have placed mumul ha'achas among the minim, and not as he does here among the mishumodim, which is the second category. Secondly, in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, where it says that one does not need to save somebody who's drowning, writes the Rambam, if he's a min, writes the Rambam, but minim and apikosim, it's even one should not only not save them, but should even cause them to drown. That since they do avera rebelliously, they are among the minim. So how does he write here that he's only commishumish that has no chelik l'olam haba? From the page, Hilchos Eidos, he writes that the moisim and apikosim and aminim andamishumodim, he didn't have to mention them among the psuli Eidos, because it's understood from himself that they're postal Eidos. Chazal only mentioned In Psul Edis, those who are Yisrael who are Rishonim. But those who are Moisrim and Apikosim and Minim and Mishamodim, they're they are even worse from the Goyim. And what applies to them is Loy Malin V'Loy Meridin by the Goyim, and these have a law of Meridin V'Loy Malin. Thus the Rambam mentions Minim Mishabodim as two separate categories. That according this is in line with his opinion that Mumul is a Meshumit, and he's not a min. And this seems to be in contradiction to what he said in Hilchos Tshuva and Hilchos Avodah Zorah, that a Mumma Lahachas is called a min. Another question he asks: where do the Rambam find in a Brisa Shel Meridin V'Lo Malin Apikosim V'Koifim? The Brisa mentions only minim and mushabodim. Our fifth question in the Gemara in Avodah Zorah, they ask a question from a Brisa that one has to return a lost item of a mishumit. And there's another brisa that says that you don't even have to save their souls. They're a physical being. And how can you say that we're talking about a mishumit who does it rebelliously? Then he's a min. And why doesn't he explain the brisa that you give him back the Aveda is where he's not keeping the Torah out of desires that he can't overcome? In the brisa where it says that a mishumid, that you don't, you even have to help him lose his life, is talking about somebody who's doing it willfully. We find in the Rambam, even if he does it out of desire, he's a mishumid, as he writes that he doesn't want to be part of Klal Yisrael, only like the Goyim, because out of desire, he wants to have a better lifestyle. And since he transgresses an older Torah, he's considered like a Meshumah that has no portion in the world to come. And therefore, it says in the Brisa that one, by reading Leimal, he asks another question from another place in the Rambam. Shlit writes, it was a Meshumah Min who doesn't believe in Torah. And here he says that Amin and Krevi Torah are two separate groups. In seventh, and he asks in Hilchos there the Rambam writes that Apikosim are those who deny Torah and prophecy. And here he says Apikosim separately, and those who deny Torah separately. So it seems separate ideas. Furthermore, in Halacha Yudalit, he says there are lighter sins that we haven't mentioned yet, and even so, somebody who does them continuously has no portion in Haba. Meaning, where did he get this differentiation between to make two categories? Another question: why the Rambam doesn't count Mishumad for desire among the Mishumodim? Because he's definitely called a Mishumad, even though he may not have the same. According to the Rambam, if there are two categories in Mishumad, they should be separated. The Lechem Mishnah explains that the Rambam has a problem. Since in Avodah Zorah it says take away Mishumit, how does the Brisa and Rosh Hashanah count Mishumodim with Minim together? So we must say that there are those who are called Minim because they cause others to do Min, become apostates, even though they themselves are not Minim. And the Lechem Mishnah wants to introduce to us the thought that in the Rambam that we call them minim because their actions cause others to become apostates, even though that they themselves technically do not have the din, are not in the category of min. And he cites proof of this from Mishnayos Chum. Somebody who slaughters, you have to have a knife to slaughter. If it has edged or grooves like a scythe, there the Rambam explains that Sodik and Baisus, they're called in our in our generation definitive minim, and they're not really minim, but they have a din of minim. What does this mean? He says, what do I mean to say? That it's permissible to kill them today in the time of Golos because they cause others to become non-Jews. Thus, the Rambam himself explains that Stoikim and Baisusim are called minim because they cause others to come to minim. So he brings proof that this Rambam has a concept of bringing others is called a min. And Lecha Mishnah explains, therefore in Halacha Ches, he counts them among the Koifrim, those who deny Torah, and then Halacha Zayin, among the minim, who have to be somehow gotten rid of because they cause others to sin. And in Peirush HaMeir, the Rambam states that Chazal called minim even those who disagreed with religion and prophets, and who denigrate and deny prophecy. Thus, the Lecha Mishnah concludes or states that all of these are called minim, even those who deny and those who convert, because they cause others to do so. But the actual minim are only the 5 that he mentioned specifically. And that's why in Rosh Hashanah, the Brisa says it doesn't include minis, only those who are they themselves in that category. Ushamodim and all the others are a separate category. And the real true language of minim is only the 5 that Rambam counts as minim, and a meshumad is a different category. And what Chazal finds, we call minim also apikosim, gam l'shemodim, gam l'moisrim, because minim in Loshe Chazal is a name that is borrowed. In other words, the rabbis use it not strictly according to its total understanding, which means only these 5 categories, but they're not real minim. They're just alluded to as minim. Where the mishum lahachas is, according to the Chachamim, is also called a min, not because he is a min, but rather because this was the language that they used to apply to them. But Lecha Mishnah still questions. If that's the case, why did the Gemara and Avodah Zorah have to tell us that according to the one who says Mishum La'achas is a min, take away Mishumad? If the Chazal you call even Mishumad a min, then why did he take it out? And he explains that there we're talking about minim as the actual category. He brings proof from that because a Mishumad is mentioned with his actual name. Like in Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara says who are the minim and who are the mishumadim. But the Gemara Avodah Zorah, you can't explain that way because the Brisa should have mentioned Kofen Apikosim that as a separate category because they're no different than mishumadim. And why didn't he explain them specifically? So the Brisa there has to be including everyone in one category, even though they're not necessarily one category, but it's the easiest language to be used. Thus, we see that Mishum Lahachas is only called a min as a borrowed name, but he's really a Mishumit. And this is how we understand Mishumit L'Cholatera Kula. He does it even if he does it out of desire. It's called min, but it doesn't mean he's a min. Because the Ravid says in his Hasoga, in his attack on the Rambam, that somebody goes to the Goyim is called a min, and therefore he's not the Mishuma that's mentioned in the Brisa. Because the Chazal, they mention somebody who converts as a min, as the Brisa says, even though it's only being utilized as a general term as opposed to the actual designation of whether a person is a min or a Mishumah. Go to the next Omud. With this, we understand the Lecha Mishnah answers all the questions The Mishum La'achas is only a Mishum, not a min, because he's referring to the actual category, like we find in Rosh Hashanah. Hilchos Eidos, he mentions all the different categories, meaning Apikosim, Koifim, Mishum Odom, everyone according to his real category. He doesn't mention the Mishum Odom because he relies on what he wrote in Hilchos Eidos, in Hilchos Ritzeach, that a Mishum is a min. He means he's a min according to the Chazal who called him a min, but he's really not a min. So too in Hilchos Shchita, when he says a min is somebody that b'dais Torah, he means he's called in the borrowed name min. And also Hilchos Ritzeach, he calls a koifer in Torah and Apikoros. That was the way it was called. Not that that's his real name, because Apikoros is only the three that are mentioned in Halacha Ches. And therefore, among the Mishumodim, he doesn't mention the one who acts out of desire. He converts out of desire to be in a better status in life, because one cannot say that somebody who does something wrong out of desire, he should have such a terrible fate that he has no chelik l'olam haba. And according to this, we understand the difference between simple sins, which are mentioned in Halacha Yudalit, which one has no portion in the world to come, only when he's continuously doing them. This is different than the 24 more serious ones that he mentioned, because the Rambam is of the opinion that in the lighter sins, you can't say that right away he loses his portion of the world to come. Whereas in the heavier sins, you can lose it right away, Rachmana litzlan, by conversion, or by doing Avodah Zarah. Therefore, the Chazal, it counted all of them together, but still, in the lighter ones, they did not use this wording, only when a person continuously does them, and we may even expand on this expansion later on. We've concluded Halacha 9.